So imagine a group of students, they take 3 tests, and we want to know which student or which students have achieved a top 2 result, so they had the top mark or the second highest mark, for all 3 tests. So another way of wording this is saying, is there a student or are there students that are consistently in the top 2 for each test? So I created a 2-step solution. I saw some things online and they had many steps, and I thought, oh, there's got to be an easier way. Now, it is a bit tricky to explain, but let's start off here. We've got student names here, or I should say in this area, repeating. So here's our test, test 1. Here's the score for each student, test 2, the score for each student over here, and test 3. Now, let's also imagine that this could be thousands of rows of data. The data might not be sorted, and of course, I made it a bit more challenging as we have ties over here. So you notice test 2, we've got the highest mark of 29, and then we've got 26 3 times, and they all should count as being in the top 2 because they're all tied. So 2-step solution, what I did was I created a sum product formula, and we have to do this within groups, remember. It isn't just the top scores, but it's the top scores per group. So when I click here in the formula bar, you see I say B4 equals, and then I highlight the whole range. So that's basically saying test 1 has to equal just the other test 1s to give me a true every time this is the same. So we're only looking at this test 1 in here. And then the second part of this is saying, and the scores, which of all these scores within this group, right, it's filtered down now to only test 1 scores, how many are greater than the one in the current row? So where you see right in here, we're looking at this formula. So we're looking at Kelly, the student, test 1, and a score of 8. So how many of these scores are greater than 8? So we have almost all of them, 6 of them. 7 is lower, but for a score of 8, there's 6 of these scores that are higher. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of them are higher than an 8. So we have a 6. So the only 2 that we want are the 0, because there's nothing higher than 24, and the 1, there's nothing higher than the 20. So if we look at test 2, we can easily see, I mean, this is a small data set and it's nicely sorted. As I said earlier, it might not be sorted, but the highest score is 29, and that's a 0. There's nothing higher than the 29. That's what the sum product gives us again. And this is one formula that I created, and I dragged it down all the way. I don't have to adjust it every time for each different test. So the 29 is the highest. It has a 0, and the 1 here indicates we have a 1 twice. Let me see, actually 3 times. So there's a 26. That's that second highest score, and there's a 1 3 different times. So that's my step 1, and my step 2 is over here, and I'm saying I use a count ifs. So let me click inside the formula, and it goes up here and it says, okay, so we have to get the same group. This is for Ken. And all these names here, the first criteria is look at column A from A2 to A25. Do they equal A29, which is Ken? Second criteria, looking at column E, let me just drag this down. Looking at column E, which is our scores, and how many are less than J32. J32 you see down here. That's just because we want the top 2. Which students have achieved a top 2 result for all 3 tests? So that's actually a variable. I'll show you later how I just created this little combo box to change that. We could say top 3 or top 1. Is the top 1 student the same every time? So we'll change that later on. But so now I've just done count ifs. There's 2 things that have to be true. Has to be the same name. All these names have to be equal to Ken. And then my little step 1, this part refers to my step 1 up here. They have to be less than 2. So in this case, Ken is never in the top 2. Tom is there twice, but not 3 times. So if we look at Tom, he has a 29. Here he's the first. So he qualifies for this one. Here we look at Tom again. He also has the top score, but up here he does not have one of the top 2 scores because it's a 24 and a 20. So he has the third highest score, so he does not qualify. So he only gets 2 of them. And remember, we're looking for all 3 tests, a top 2 result for all 3 tests. So as you can see, the only person that does that is Sally. Here, Sally has a 23, which is a second, qualifies. Here, Sally has a 26, which is tied for second place. That also qualifies. And here, up in test 1, Sally has a 20, which is second place. The 24 was the highest score. So now let's just do this as well. When I click this, it just turns on some conditional formatting. We can see per each group or each, so this is test 1. The top 2 are Rick with 24, Sally with 20. The next group, the next test, test 2, these are all the people that are highlighted in purple that are in the top 2. So it doesn't matter whether you are the top, which is Tom, or tied for the second. So I put these ties in on purpose to make it a little more challenging. Now the third test, which is down here, we have got Tom with a 29 for first and Sally a 23. So you can just kind of scan through the different groups. Sally is in this group, which is test 3. Sally is also in test 2, which is here, and Sally is also in test 1. So here we have some more conditional formatting, just to say if this is anytime this is a 3, we want to highlight it in green. So that basically solves it. I can't think of an easier way to do it. Just 2 different formulas. A sum product here, and then here we just have all the names typed in one time, and I just use a count ifs. So let's now change this. I'm going to use this combo box. I'm going to say, what about top 3? Notice how this will change to press a 3. So then it says, which students have achieved a top 3 result for all 3 tests? So as long as your score or your mark, whatever you call it, is in the top 3, then you qualify. So now you can see we've got 2 people. So Tom, of course Sally is still the same, but now Tom also qualifies. Tom has a 29, which is the top. Tom has a 29, which is also the top here. And then here he has the third highest score. So a 24, a 20, and a 17. So now he also qualifies. So as you can imagine, now I'm going to say, what about top 4? So this thing changes. Which students have achieved a top 4 result for all 3 tests? So it's getting easier and easier. Now we've got another student, Ned. So we look here in test 3. He's got a 22. So now he qualifies. He's tied with Kelly for a 22, but that's fine. They are tied for third place. Ned is also in here with a 26, tied for second. And here Ned has a 14, and he has 4th place. Because we said the top 4, as long as you're in the top 4 for all 3 tests. Doesn't matter whether you're first, second, third, or fourth, as long as you're in those top 4. So, all the conditional format, I can show you in another video how I did that. But the basic stuff here, let me just turn that off, is you want to know, let's go back to the original question, which students have achieved a top 2 result for all 3 tests? And here it's simply Sally.